Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I am Jen. This is Fundie Fridays, and here on my channel I talk about Christian fundamentalism while doing my makeup. In case you haven't noticed, I got a new setup, and now I'm using a new camera and a real microphone, so it's over for you hoes. Today we are going to be talking about a subject that is right up my alley. Quite frankly, I don't know why I didn't cover this earlier, and honestly, I'm shocked that I haven't even heard of these crazy stories. It's going to be a lot of yelling. So if you are like around your children or on a bus, I don't recommend watching this video. This video, of course, is about the Scotts, Eugene and Melissa. Buckle up because these two are a funhouse fever dreams worth of entertaining insanity. I feel bad for subjecting all of you to Warren Jeffs, so this is going to be a comic relief episode. Unfortunately, one thing I can't do is use any footage of Gene in his bizarre 24-hour Christian broadcast. His widow, Melissa Scott, maintains total control over his entire tape library, physical and digital, from the show, and has locked it all up. She is notoriously litigious in regards to use of any of the publicly available footage as well, including any of the few clips that she posts on YouTube. Well, she did lose that lawsuit, but I took this as a personal goal to be able to make an episode without using any of her clips, just for the whole principle of it. So, James will be doing some reenactments for us, and I think you're gonna like it.
Probably noticed by now that I'm wearing my glasses upside down. And you're absolutely right. That's because I wanted to show all of you how foolish you look. Sending me $200 checks. $200 in the mail. That's a waste of the good mail carrier's time. I want to explain something to you people. Every time you send a letter, that costs dollars and cents. You understand that? It is a waste of time for you to send $200. Janice Stevenson from Ithaca, New York, very specifically. You probably end up marrying you. Seems to be my habit. In case I didn't tell y'all, my ex-wife was also a She would send things like birthday cards. And all this, I'm gonna rock it in red this time so you understand that she was bleeding me dry. Just like you people sending them $200 checks.
William Eugene Scott was born August 14th, 1929 in Boole, Idaho. For all of the insanity that would follow, it is notable that he earned his PhD in philosophies of education at Stanford University in 1957. He worked professionally as an ordained minister for nearly 50 years, and even assisted Oral Roberts in establishing Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Scott served as a traveling preacher for the Assemblies of God. He was the president of Full Gospel Fellowship of Churches and Ministers International for 9 years, and for a combined total of 35 years as the pastor for the Protestant Westcott Christian Center and Faith Center. Faith Center actually owned 4 broadcast stations in California and 1 randomly in Hartford, Connecticut. These stations comprised FBN, the Faith Broadcasting Network. Scott had a limited budget when he first started. He would be filmed alone in a dimly lit basement with just him and his whiteboard. But this initial lack of production quality was a little concern to Gene. He still maintained the intense, simmering confidence of Jake the Snake Roberts and would seemingly stop at nothing to advance his brand of Christianity.
Now, in case you don't speak Greek, I'll enlighten you. That is the symbol for pi. That's what they tell us. That's what science, the doctors, they tell us. They say to us that pi equals 3.14, who gives a It's okay that I said it because it's about the scientists. But that doesn't make any sense to me. Because pie is a big round circle full of fruit and sugar and delicious things. Sometimes the pies have cherries in them. Sometimes they have blueberries in them. And the important thing is that they're cheap to make. Send me more money!
He was not going to be slowed down by modest means. Instead, he got creative in a way that I admit was probably a little ahead of its time. He would reference a band that was clearly not in the room with him, using stock footage, and he would talk about these huge phone banks full of all these people running 24 hours a day that was also stock footage, and it was amazing.
I want you to understand what you're doing to me. My hair's falling out.
By 1983, his broadcasts were being sent around the world via satellite. By 1990, his network was available to over 180 countries, and by 1992, his sermons were actually being broadcast in several languages on AM, FM, and shortwave radio. You know it's legit when it's on shortwave radio. 1990 was also the year that Scott moved his broadcast to the United Artists Theater. This was a theater that was a part of a larger hotel complex in downtown Los Angeles. It was built in 1927. It's a historic Spanish Revival architecture. It's beautiful, and it's a bona fide historic monument. It's covered in murals by Anthony Heinsbergen, and it seats 2,000 people. Swanky digs, though I think we can all agree it loses some of that lo-fi DIY punk charm that the Whiteboard Dungeon had. During Gene's time at the theater, he renamed it Los Angeles University Cathedral and set about sprucing it up into a beautiful, campy mess. I mean, it's not a Gene Scott production if there's not props and crap all over the place. Scott previously boasted that he owned and housed the largest private collection of rare Bibles in the world. This claim has not been confirmed, but I'm sure he had a lot of Bibles. As we all know, good Christians own a lot of Bibles. Atop the building was another historic monument, the glowing red neon Jesus Save sign. This sign actually came from Gene's old church, which had to be demolished in the 80s due to earthquake damage. I find this whole thing a bit misleading. Jesus may save, but Gene Scott clearly prefers to make withdrawals.
Properly prepared today's sermon for all of you. I've been tracking the donation numbers. 100, 200, 300, 400, and so on and so forth. I've been scouring the cities and making sure I understand the faith and dedication of my flock. And as such, after many hours of hard research, over 77,000 hours of hard research in 2 weeks, I was able to determine monetarily how much my followers care about me. And that's what inspired me to write today's sermon. I want you to look at it. That's truth! In literary form!
Scott's actual sermons are nothing to write home about, in my opinion. They tended to be dry and about esoteric translations and diatribes that went absolutely nowhere. James and I both consistently struggled to figure out what both Gene and Melissa were actually believing in their faith, which makes everything else so surreal. They're so angry and defensive regarding an amorphous, inconsistent faith. If you're gonna yell at me and demand money, at least tell me why. Well, to be fair, we weren't really paying attention, but it's really hard. He's so boring and angry. Another random side note, you weren't allowed to touch Gene. He did not shake hands or have private meetings with people at his church. And if he were alive today, he probably would have been the only televangelist to actually wear a mask. Not for political reasons. He just wouldn't want to breathe the same air as you because you didn't donate enough money. But none of what we've talked about yet is what drew people to Scott's broadcasts. It was his theatrics that brought the attention. Gene would wear strange hats like sombreros, crowns, captain's hats, multiple sunglasses at once. He would threaten, belittle, and humiliate his audience. He would take an hour to light his cigar or spend minutes silently looking through a Bible verse, just composing his thoughts with his audience sitting quiet and attentive the whole time. Sometimes the little old ladies would be like sobbing and he's just sitting there like, you can't make this shit up.
And do you know how far your donations have gotten me from my dream of purchasing a boat? I got $27.95 from a woman in Butte, Montana. I bought this captain's hat. You can't drive this to Honduras, folks. You can't drive this to Honduras. You can't drive a hat. Can't pick up no sandwiches without a damn hat. This is why I tell you it's serious. God sent me on a mission and said, your people need to help you get a boat to go down to Honduras and help those poor children pick up those sandwiches and find those beautiful centaur girls that are in the jungle according to the comic books.
I'm also using gel liner today, which I am not very familiar with. So, let's see what happens. Scott developed quite a following, and many of them are still devoted today. And rest assured, many of the mainstays from Gene's time preaching in the crawl space made their way to his new, swankier digs. He was almost as famous for his iconic whiteboard as he was his theatrics, even moving to a larger venue. I'm honestly starting to suspect that Gene Scott himself inspired the trope of the professor who goes crazy with the annotations to the point where it's illegible. Psychics, government conspiracy theories. These were all targets for Gene to randomly veer into during his sermons. Stream of consciousness was like a whitewater river, with his viewers being the unsuspecting tourists getting bucked off the inflatable raft. One commenter described it this way: Los Angeles TV for me in the early 90s was heavy doses of Gene Scott, David Liebehart's puppet shows, and lots of Francine Dancer. Good times. And I'm not ashamed to admit I knocked out a few to his widow Melissa Scott's porn pictures. If you have any propensity to be attracted to crazy, she's your perfect storm. Regarding donations, Gene was absolutely adamant that his viewers donate at the bare minimum the 10% tithing that God demands. He would scream at the top of his lungs to his viewers to donate immediately, generously, and anonymously. He believed that giving should be done anonymously according to the Bible. So he gave people King's House numbers, and he would thank his donors on TV by calling their King's House number instead of their name. This is actually a fascinating way for Gene to get his donors specifically attached to him. Since he was the only one who would acknowledge their donation in any capacity, I'm sure that people sat around all day just waiting for Gene to read off their little number and acknowledge their donation. Well, I did the thing where if you can't get your wings to be even, you just black out your whole eye, so that's what this is. Still don't hate it. I actually like gel. This is a new development in my life. Scott showed disdain for other religious broadcasters like Jerry Falwell and Jimmy Swaggart, and resented when people referred to him as a televangelist. He instead preferred to be regarded as a teacher and pastor, and constantly noted that he was vulnerable to being voted out of his position by his church's board. The beef with Jimmy Swaggart and Jerry Falwell, of course, is ironic and delicious, because Gene Scott is just as greedy as they are.
And that televangelist bastard Jerry Falwell, out there stealing money from his flock. Completely different than what I do for some reason.
In his heyday as pastor, Doc Scott reportedly collected $1 million a month in donations and amassed an empire that included 2 horse ranches, a 35,000 square foot mansion in Pasadena, a private plane, and a collection of luxury cars. Now, Scott acts like the church owns these things, but he sure got to use them. At one point, Gene had a run-in with the FCC stemming from discrepancies in how the organization was reporting its finances. When asked to turn over his donor list for an audit, Scott refused and likened this action to a noble journalist protecting their sources. He would then go and lambaste the FCC as a council of bureaucratic monkeys banging on cymbals, obviously complete with the appropriate props.
I was listening to the radio. I don't make a habit of it, but the driver had it on, and I was deeply immersed in my 5th reading of the Bible for that morning. But I heard on the radio this song. Woman talking with multiple men, already disturbing, about her various humps. As if that's supposed to be attractive. Says it over and over. My humps. My humps. You know what else got humps? Camels. And camels aren't attractive. My ex-wife was a camel. I can only assume that the FCC had been piping this hump song through my radio while I was asleep. Because that's what they are. They infest you with camel humping music to distract you from the beautiful horse girls.
Scott was big into charitable giving, such as making large donations to support the LA Public Library and the Rose Bowl Aquatic Center, which led people to believe that he was trying to butter them up for something. When Scott wasn't having meltdowns for the Lord, he enjoyed other hobbies. He practiced painting, having completed over 1,000 watercolors. He also enjoyed collecting stamps and rare manuscripts. In 1989, he bought Silver Oaks Ranch in Bradbury, California, valued at $11 million. This ranch came with a stable of more than 100 show horses that are now believed to be worth millions. This started what would be known as his pony girl phase. On his show, he hired models of the adult variety to attend his church in the front row. And then Scott would make his audience stand up and give the ladies a standing ovation when they entered. And for some lucky viewers, they might even catch when he would film the naked ladies riding horses at his ranch. Release the tapes, Melissa. When I was looking for stock footage of women riding horses in bikinis, I found 100% porn. So instead I offer you this other visual aid. So in 1995, our lovely Melissa was supposedly Scott's favorite pony girl, or centaur if you prefer the original Greek like she does. And they fell in love. But to be fair, Melissa and Eugene do have a lot in common as they both love money. Melissa was born April 12th, 1968 as Melissa Pauline Peroff in Italy. Her family moved to Canada and then Massachusetts, where Melissa met and later married Paul J. Pastore, an aspiring adult film producer. In 1992, Melissa and her husband moved to North Hollywood and began their work as pornographic producers and directors. Melissa performed as Barbie Bridges in adult photos and videos produced by Vivid Productions. To this day, Melissa denies that she was ever in an adult film, and she has no idea who that other woman is. Which I don't understand. Is this some sort of Lizzie McGuire situation? Hey now! Hey now!
Please clap.
You hear that? That's Melissa Scott coming for me because I thought about using a clip. The most obvious issue here is that if Melissa would just fess up to her past life as a porn star, that would be an amazing redemption arc. How many people would love to hear a testimony from a porn star turned biblical scholar? In 1996, Melissa and Eugene divorced their partners, and they got married to each other in 2000. This porn star image is in total contrast to Melissa's new persona as a biblical scholar who has an IQ of 186 with a PhD. There is no reason that she can't be a genius, and we shouldn't insinuate that just because she did porn means she's stupid. Far from it. I just think she's lying about her credentials and her background. She's clearly intelligent and competent in Bible studies, and she seems to be a cunning linguist. Eugene was diagnosed with cancer in the 2000s, but he declined surgery and chemotherapy, instead treating his cancer with homeopathic herbs given to him by Melissa. Scott described his battle with sickness to his congregation during several months of continued live broadcasts. In 2004, he named Melissa Scott the succeeding pastor of the church and signed papers formalizing the transition. Some would argue that her ordination is not legitimate, but I think it's just as legit as mine. Eugene suffered a stroke, went into a coma, and died on February 21st, 2005. And when Melissa took over the church, some asshole mailed Easter cards to the congregants. This card had pictures of Barbie Bridges splayed out on the front and said, "See you Sunday, the church where you can do anything." Anything. And I can see how this would be worrisome for Melissa, especially since the narrative that I'm getting is that she was a sex worker who could potentially be stalked or murdered from the weird-ass people who go to her church, or the people who make websites about her and how she's the devil. We should also mention the fact that perhaps she's distancing herself from her past because it was traumatic. Either way, it's not okay to harass anyone, and while I personally wish that Melissa would grab the bull by the horn, so to speak, and take ownership of the Barbie Bridges story, that's not my or anybody else's decision to make. Plus, I can only imagine that the person who spent all week making and photocopying pornographic postcards for their church is just the worst. That's pathetic. Actually, that's advanced pathetic. In 2011, Melissa sold the United Artists Theater for $11 million and then relocated everything to Glendale, California, including the Jesus signs. The theater has also been since remodeled and it has been consumed by the Ace Hotel chain. The whole thing now is an overpriced event space with a luxury boutique hotel. Melissa is formerly the pastor of Faith Center Church, known currently for its glorious Greek fountain on the outside. You know that she knows Greek and she's totally a genius? Such little information about Gene and Melissa Scott, I treasured what sources I was able to find. The No Ross and Carrie podcast was very invaluable to me for this episode. They got tickets, went to her show, got a FOIA. They are very much overachievers. And I liked their podcast so much that I sent in a request that they cover Remnant Fellowship, so fingers crossed. On their two-part episode, they talk about both Gene and Melissa Scott, focusing on the tense atmosphere at Melissa's church, all the properties she still owns, and her propensity to go after anyone that mentions them. So I highly recommend this podcast, and there's a link in the info box below. And as I've touched on all this before, Melissa Scott has a monopoly on all of Gene's footage. Her pet project upon marrying him was to digitize all the hundreds of hours of tape from his decades of programming. And she brings this up a lot to give herself clout. That's why I repeated it. She talks about having to spend her own money and all of the thousands of man and woman hours that went into it. She specifically said man and woman hours too. This is a paraphrasing of what Gene had to say about the situation.
I decided recently that I was gonna move to digital cigars. I used to use regular ones, but you know how they work. You light them on fire, you smoke them up, and then they're gone. And that's what's going to happen to my tapes. All of my 73 billion hours, completely 100% validated by independent sources of prior pastoring, they're going to be gone like so many cigars. I wish there was a way for us to avoid that. I sure do. What if everyone that followed my church, followed my teachings, what if they all decided one day to just stop being such cheap trash? What if they all said to themselves, hey, maybe I'll unglue my butt from this chair and I'll cut a check and I'll devote some of my time and my hours to the 24-hour digitization of Pastor Dr. Gene Scott, DDS Esquire's tapes and recordings. Maybe the future generations wouldn't have to die in a soulless, unchrist pit.
There is not a lot of unbiased information about Melissa Scott. I found plenty of fan pages and forums dedicated to glorifying Gene, demonizing Melissa, and it all, of course, was included with a noticeably misogynistic vibe. I didn't even realize that a website could smell like Mountain Dew Doritos until I researched this video. If you legitimately want to catch her sermons, they are available on all kinds of streaming platforms. Her stuff is really dry, and it's more about translations and esoteric Bible study, just like Gene. Except it's not entertaining. I'm sure she's sincere, but this whole thing is very strange, and I haven't been able to maintain attention for more than a couple minutes before getting bored as hell while watching her. And if you manage to get tickets to her church, you have to deal with rigid security, vague legal threats, and a somber cult-like atmosphere. The audience behaves as if they were choreographed, saying yes ma'am to her rhetorical questions and laughing at her bad jokes. Melissa is just as greedy as Gene, in my opinion. She preaches the prosperity gospel and solicits donations and volunteer hours from her fans. It's reported that she has liquidated pretty much all of Gene's cars, horses, and real estates. Of course, that makes me wonder if there's some sort of debt going on. But besides the hoarding of Gene's tapes, I really think that she's harmless. Sure, she doesn't understand copyright law, and that was an impediment to me, but college professors have been giving boring lectures in front of whiteboards for years, and none of them have taken over the world yet, so I think we're safe. Melissa's not even verified on Twitter, and she doesn't even have very many followers. On average, I get more views and better engagement than her, so... Gene, I think, is cool in an ironic way. It's hard to deny that he had a magnetic approach to preaching, even if it was tinged with abusive language and general madness. I certainly wouldn't want to give him any money, but I can't deny that his sermons kept me watching. Although I really don't think any of his teachings were important or profound, I just believe in the importance of preserving media. And if Melissa would at least sell the sermons on DVD or a streaming service, people would buy them. She could even open a museum with all those Bibles she has. So I'm going to link the documentary God's Angry Man by Werner Herzog at the end. You should really watch it. I was afraid that I would get sued if I used any of the clips, so I didn't, but it is fascinating. This was fun. I'm glad somebody suggested it, but, you know, I had to work with what I had. So I hope you thought James was funny. I sure did. Next video is January 30th, and I think you're really going to like it. January 16th is the final day to get the Idle Hands and the Sob Gang tee. And if you don't get your hands on it, I will be doing another campaign, so don't worry. Remember to consensually smash that like and subscribe button. Follow me on social media. And have a very blessed day.
Maybe if we want complete trash, we could decide... Who the hell let a cat in here? Why are you here? Oh, I like this cat. She don't care. She knows I'm playing.